Good evening and welcome back to the War Games table. Today we're going to be playing another game of Pikeman's Lament. And over here on the table you can see we have a scenario set up already. This is from the book 1 Hour War Games, and it is a scenario which is representing the British thrust at Salamanca, where they pushed through to break the French lines of communication with a side thrust, but that thrust itself was flank attacked. So here we have these red army over here, and their goal is to get off that board edge, smash through this line of defence over here and get off that board edge. If they can get half their army off, then it's a victory. Otherwise it's a victory for the flankers over here. And this is our blue army. The red army consists of a general with a unit of elite trotters, which are cavalry with pistols, then 3 units of pike and shot, 3 units of pike, 3 units of shot. They're all separate in these rules. And then behind we have 2 units of trotters, and all of these are raw, which means they have worse defense and they have less range in their shooting. For our flanking forces in the blue army, we have the 2 units of pike and shot over here. We have 2 units of cavaliers, so those are heavily armoured, impetuous, wild charging, and just generally fairly unreliable. They are the orcs of the English Civil War. We have some forlorn hope here, who are kind of elite musketeers who are sent in to storm defences and blow up bridges and things. And we have a regimental gun here. I have a limber at the back, but that doesn't represent anything, that's just because it looks nice. Right, the first thing we're going to do is roll to see who goes first. That is the blue army. The movement for the blue army is mostly going to be trying to get across there and cut off the attack of the reds. So I am going to cut back after we've had a few movements. We have this unit of trotters move. They will need a 4-up because they're close to their commander, and they just get it. Then we'll have these unit of pike swing round, this unit of pike go ahead, and these trotters split to go either side as well. So they're all within 6 inches of their commander, so it'll be 4s for each of them. So 4s for this one, success, 4s for the shot, success, 4s for this pike, success, 4s for this shot, success, for this pike, double 1, something bad happens, and a 2. A 2 means retreat at the double, so it makes a double move to the rear, and it also ends the activation of the reds. So back to the blues again. We've got to see if any of the units are within wild charge range, and so far they're not, but they will be next turn. So with the commander here, we're going to start the ordering, and again, probably lots of movement. So these gallopers needing 5s, they get it. This forlorn hope needing 5s, they fail. With the failure of moving these forlorn hope, we switch over to the reds now. Okay, the red commander knows that these gallopers represent a major threat. So the first thing that's going to happen is this set of elite trotters are going to attempt to caracole. So in order to do that, they need to roll a 7, and they fail, which means actually that's the end of the red activation, and we're over to the blues. I'll keep this view just for a second, because the first thing you've got to do is try and test for the aggressive cuirassier charging, and they're actually probably going to charge into this shot here as the closest unit. And with an 8, that means that they effectively will now charge. They're getting 12 attacks, needing 3s. And so they get 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the shot have a stamina of 2, so there's 4 2s and 8. So that means they take 4 casualties. They will now be able to defend on a 5-up. They go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's enough to cause 2 casualties in return. The unit that caused the most casualties wins the combat, and it forces the other unit to retreat. So they will automatically retreat 3 inches. There's not an easy way to do that, so I'm going to retreat them kind of diagonally. And now that unit needs to take a morale test. The morale test for raw shot is a 4-up. So we'll roll some dice. So we get an 8. Minus 4 from there means we have just passed the morale, which was a 4 or more. So they stay ready to respond in some way when it's their turn. So let's get some movement. This unit of pike needs 4s, they get it. This unit of shot needs 4s, and they get it. This unit of cuirassier needs 4s, and they get it. This regimental gun needs 6, it gets it. And this unit of forlorn hope needs 5s. It doesn't get it. It doesn't get a double 1, so nothing terrible happens. Let's get that movement done. That's all the blue movement done. Let's go back to the reds and see what they can do to stop this blue tide. Right, there needs to be some significant movement here in order for the red commander to be able to pull this off. So let's try again. He's going to have this unit of trotters move. So basically it's 4s for all of these units over here. And I think it probably makes sense for him to attempt to get those going first. So 4s, success, 4s, success, 4s, success, 4s, success, 4s. Right, double 1, something bad happens. Let's get the movement done and then we'll see what happens. And the effect of that 1 is attack. The unit you just tried to activate makes an attack against the closest enemy unit. If there's no unit close enough to contact, the unit still moves a full move towards the closest enemy. So this unit can, in fact, attack these gallopers. So it's 1, 2, 3, so we cause 1 casualty. And in return, the gallopers will defend on 5s. So they get 2. They only get 2, which is enough to just cause 1 casualty on the shot. So against all odds, the shot has beaten the gallopers. They need to take a morale test now. They have a morale of 3 up, so they roll a 10 minus 3 is 7, so they are totally fine. Because we failed that double 1, which caused this order to happen over here, this attack, we're now going to switch back to the blues. I think we are going to move these units first, get them into a better position. So the shot will need a 4 to move, and it just gets it. The pike will need a 4, and it gets it. These gallopers will need a 4, and they get it. We are not in range with the regimental gun, so do we do the Forlorn Hope or the regimental gun first? I think we do the regimental gun, and we will attempt to fire with it. And to fire with it, we need an 8+. And with a 9, we get the shot off. This regimental gun, this bronze culverin, will be firing at this unit of pike. It will get 12 dice, and they will need 4s, but because they're firing over 11 inches, they will need 5s to hit. So that's 2, 3, 4. So that's enough to cause 2 casualties on that unit. The morale is 4 up, so we rolled a 3, so we failed the morale test, and we minus 2, which gets us down to 1, which means we're not at 0 or below, so the unit doesn't just completely run away, but it is now wavering. And we'll now attempt to move these Forlorn Hope up. They need a 5 up, and they move. And lastly, we will have this unit of gallopers, and they are going to attempt to charge into the shot that charged them last turn, so they will need a 7 or more. And with a 7, they get that charge in. They get 12 dice needing 3s. So that's 4. That's 8 hits, so that's enough to take this unit up to 5 casualties. And that raw shot will defend on 5s. So 1, 2. Just 2. That's not enough to cause a single casualty, so they have to retreat. And now they have to take another morale test. The morale is 4. So with an 8 minus 5, that's a 3. So they've taken 5 casualties, and we rolled an 8 here. So that's 3, so it's less than their overall morale score, so that means they are also wavering. Right, because this unit has a wild charge, it will automatically follow up and fight a second round of combat in the same turn. So I'm going to place a casualty marker next to this unit to represent 6 casualties, so it's at half strength, and 1 additional. So it is now going to be at -7 to whatever morale roll we roll. It will get to defend, but because it was already wavering, it will only hit 6s. So that's nothing. And 2, that's not enough to cause a casualty. So it is going to retreat again, and we'll need to roll a morale test with a 9 minus 7 is 2, so it continues to be wavered. I believe it takes another casualty. That's been a very successful turn for the blues, so let's go back to the reds and see what they can do. Rally our units first, so we need to rally this one, so it's a -8, and a 7 minus 8 for the number of casualties it's taken means it is routed completely from the game. We also need to try and rally this unit over here. A raw pike has a morale of 4, so 6 minus 2 is 4, so actually that unit is now back in action. I think over here we need to address these gallopers because their continued presence is going to ruin the day of everyone in the back half of this column. So we're going to attempt to fire with this raw shot. That's needing a 7. With a double 6, they get something good happening. Going to roll dice to see what the effect of the double 6 is. Unfortunately, there is nothing useful out of a 2. It's a campaign-based benefit. One thing I forgot was that the shot units get a +1 to their first dice roll for attack, defense, or shoot per game. So that first round of combat where they attacked, they should have got +1. I'm going to yield that 1 casualty to the gallopers to represent that bonus that I didn't give them last time. This unit that just got the double 6 is firing in. It will get 12 shots. They would need 6s, but because they're in their first salvo, they'll need 5s. So that's 2. 3. That's enough to cause another casualty. So this unit will now need to take a morale test. Their morale is 3 up. So they get an 8 minus 5 is 3. So they weather that storm. We'll have this unit of Trotters Caracol, this unit here, they need 7. They get it, which means they can move halfway, perform a shoot action. They will need a 5 up, and there's 6 of them. So they do not cause enough hits to cause a casualty, and then they continue with their Caracol, which is an attack move. It's also 5. So that's 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's enough to cause 2 casualties, so we'll put a casualty marker there. That unit defends on 5s. That's not enough to cause any casualties in return. So they've lost the combat. And they now need to take a morale test at -7. So with an 11, -7 is 4. So they pass that morale test.
Actually, they should be dead, having taken more than 6 casualties.
Now we're going to have this unit of shot fire into these gallopers. So they will need a 7 to get off, which they get, and they will get 12 dice. They would be hitting on 6s, but because they are on their first fire and they're within 11 inches, they're hitting on 5s. So that's 1, 2. That's not enough to cause a casualty. Okay, having activated these 3 units, these trotters here just hanging around at the back. So we're going to attempt to caracol them. There's not going to be enough room for them to actually get into combat, I don't think, but they should be able to do a half move and shoot. They'll need 7s, and they fail that. So now we're over to the blues again. From the blue commander's perspective, the first thing that needs to happen here is to test for a wild charge for this unit of cavaliers. And with a 7, which you can't quite see, with a 7, that means they have to charge in. This unit of gallopers, the cuirassiers, are at half strength, so they get 6 attacks, needing 3s. And the defense of the trotters is 3, so that's enough to cause 1 casualty on the trotters. In return, the trotters have a defense of 4, so let's roll those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's enough to cause another 2 casualties. Gallopers, the cuirassiers, are removed from the table. Right, the rest of the blue army now needs to seriously get itself into action, because now with no obstructions in the rear of this column, the reds are going to be able to charge ahead. So let's get these units here moved. They'll all need 4s to move. So the pike at the end succeeds. The shot next to them succeeds. These cuirassiers succeed. We are going to fire our bronze culverin at these pike, so it will need a 7, which it just gets. 5s to hit. So 2 and 4. So that's enough to cause 2 casualties. Now this unit will need to take a leadership test. It has a morale of 4 up, so that's 5. Minus 4 is 1, so we're less than the morale, which means it wavers, but we're not below 0, so it doesn't run away. I didn't actually move those units. Let's get those moved. The only units left actually are these units right in the rear over here. First they're going to need a 7 to shoot, which they get. Then they will be shooting on 5, long range 6s, but first salvo back to 5s again. So needing 5s to hit this group of trotters over here. So that's 0 and 3, but the elite trotters have a stamina of 4, so it's not enough to cause a casualty on this unit over here. That just leaves the pike over there to be able to move. They are within 6 inches of their general, so they will move on a 4 up, which they do, and then you're just going to move up, and what they're attempting to do is create more of a buffer between their position and the edge of the board. So things are not looking especially rosy for the red general. The first thing you'll have to do is try and rally these. So he rolls a 5, -4 is 1, which means they don't rally, and they take already wavering, so they take another casualty. I think the most sensible thing to do is for these trotters to be proactive in their attack of these gallopers over here. So they are going to attempt to caracole, but I think we will do that slightly later because we need to move up the rest of the army pretty urgently. So let's have these trotters, they will move on a 5, which they get, and we'll move these trotters on a 5, which they get, and let's get those moved. We'll have these trotters attempt to caracole these unit of gallopers. They'll need 6s because they're within range of their general, which they get. So they move halfway and they perform a shooting attack. So that is, because they're elite, they are shooting on a 5. So they get 3, 4, 5. The stamina of that unit is 3s, so it actually only causes 1 casualty. Now this unit of trotters would charge in as part of the caracole move. It counts as a separate attack activation, and one of the unique things about the cuirassiers, the gallopers, is they have a counter charge, which means if they can pass an attack activation, they count as attacking as well. I didn't do it over here, I totally forgot, but let's do it now. So they'll need a 5 up. So they count as attacking, they meet halfway. Let's move them like so. And now both units count as attacking. The elite trotters will attack on 5s, which gives them 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, enough to cause 2 casualties. So they've caused 2, and in return, the gallopers will be hitting on 3s. So they get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's enough to cause 2 casualties in return. So one thing I've been doing is testing morale on the losing side of a combat rather than both sides, because both sides, in theory, have taken casualties. In this case, I'm going to carry on doing that. So in this case, I'm not going to have a morale test on either side there. So let's have this pike activate, the red pike activate on a 5, which they do. The orange pike on a 5, which they do. The red shot at the back here. Let's move those first, because that's what I'm going to do some shooting after them. Okay, the last unit to activate on the blue side is going to be this unit of shot, and it's going to try and fire. It will need a 7 up to fire, and it doesn't. So that turns over to the blue side here. Of course, we now need to check for a wild charge for these gallopers. So with a 5, they have passed their attack activation, which basically means they're forced to wild charge in. They're attacking on 3s. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's enough to cause another 2 casualties. So they've caused 2, and in return, those elite trotters will defend on 4s. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they also cause 2. So again, it's a draw. We'll have the attackers retreat. And again, I think we might need to test morale on these because they've both taken casualties, but since the combat was a draw, I'm going to just arbitrarily rule that that's not the case. We're going to have this unit of white shot fire at this unit of yellow pike, so it will need 7s, 6s because of the commander, and they get it. This is their first salvo, but they are at long range, so as a result, they will be hitting on 5s. Nothing on the first one, and 2 on the second one. That's enough to cause a casualty. They will need to test morale. Their morale is 4 up. So with a 10, -6 is 4, which means they've not they've been resilient to the fire and they were taking a casualty. They haven't run away. Okay, we'll have this blue unit of shot fire in. They are not in the first salvo, and they are at long range, so they'll be hitting on 6s. 2 6s there. And 3 6s is not enough to cause a casualty on that unit. This unit of white pike with our general in it move up. They'll need a 4 to do that, which they can. And we'll have this blue unit also move up. And they just move. That's going to block the way. We're going to have our cannon fire. It is at maximum range, but it's going to fire into the flank of this unit of elite trotters here. It's going to need a 7 to do so. It fails. So that's the end of the blue activation. So we're back over to the reds. The reds need to try and rally this unit over here. With a double 6, not only does it rally, but it gets an additional effect, and that effect is a hero. They call it a priest or a cleric. I'm just going to use this figure here to represent a bit of a sub-commander. What that means is they get an additional +1 to their morale score rolls. So it's all looking a bit dire for the Reds here. I don't think they're going to be able to swing through. They're going to have to fight their way through. So let's have this unit of elite trotters go to attack to caracol, sorry, the cuirassier here. They'll need a 7, but they'll need a 6 because they have their commander in that unit. With a 5, they fail, so straight over to the blues. We're going to test for a wild charge here for the blues. They'll need to roll a double 1 basically to not charge. Right, they fail that. So now they're going to need 3s. No, they're not. They've now taken enough casualties that they are below half strength. So they're only going to get 6 dice, needing 3. So they get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And similarly, in return, the unit of trotters is at half strength, so they'll only get 6 dice, needing 4s. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So they cause 1 casualty each. The general is in that unit, so we need to roll a double 1 to see if he's a casualty. He's not. And we move the attackers back.
And again, with 6 casualties, that unit should be dead.
So we'll have these Forlorn Hope firing into the side of these trotters. So they'll need a 7, I believe. They need a 6, and they fail. Wow! So straight back over to the Red General. Let's see if he can pull that back from the brink. These trotters attempt to move up, so they'll need a 5, which they get. This unit of trotters attempt to move up on 5. Right, we'll have this unit of trotters attempt to caracol this unit here, needing a 7, and they fail. So back over to the Blue General. And it's now the Blue General's turn, but I just realised, with 6 casualties over here, this unit is completely destroyed. Order his shot to fire into those elite trotters. They'll need a 6, which they get, and then they will have 12 shots, needing 5s. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's enough to cause a casualty, which actually is now enough to wipe out that unit. So the Red Army, despite losing its commander, it has a handy second in command here now. But I think we may well call the game. I zoom you out a bit. Pan around the battlefield. You can see we have 2 undamaged units here. And we only have 2 units of horse. It's going to be impossible for any units of foot to bypass all of these defences without being destroyed. There's a good chance that this unit of horse will be destroyed by this cannon and these Forlorn Hope over here. So, I think actually that is a bit of a failure from the Red General. There was not enough impetus at the start to get their line stretched out and out. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.